this is something that's really funny. They had to rob their money out of the banks. So they went into the bank armed, and they didn't rob the whole bank. They just said, "أنا بدي حقي. I want the 20K I deposited." They take the 20K, they go to prison for a month.
Assalamu alaikum and hi everyone. So today we have our young guest, Jad, who's from Lebanon. First of all, I've always been personally fascinated by Lebanon as a country, being in the Levant, having a very amazing, diverse population, ethnic group as well, and religious groups that are very diverse, and also as a population that has maybe more original Lebanese, I would say, living outside of Lebanon than in Lebanon themselves. Also, what fascinates me about the country is that there used to be a carrefour of business back then during the medieval era. We see that Lebanon has been going through multiple crises for many years and always rise again from the ashes, maybe due to for the very strong diaspora and way of doing things. So what interests me also about the country is that they are full of knowledge, people bringing a lot of knowledge and a lot of help in terms of building other nation. Like the Dubai economy has been enjoying a lot from the knowledge base of the expat the Lebanese population. Saudi Arabia and all of the Middle East actually have been getting a lot of contribution from the national of Lebanon. And hence I want to know how such smart people, when put into challenge anywhere in the world, are able to kind of execute and do things. Hence, when we go back to Lebanon itself, back home, why and then they are not able to rise and build the Switzerland of the Middle East that has always been the dream from every single Lebanese to have. So we'll dive into that, talk about different things, and we'd love to hear from Jad, his young experience, and also maybe his family, others, friends, relative experience into that topic. So without further ado, I'd like to also let Sharon add up on that and see how we can start the discussion here.
So thank you, Jad, for joining us. Jad, I met him at, we were both on a panel at STEP conference. This was in Saudi last year. And I think we immediately hit it off. So Jad was the most interesting person on the panel, in my opinion, the one that I was listening to the most. And we shared a lot, we had a lot in common in terms of our viewpoints on crypto. So it was a panel about crypto. And ever since then, he's taught me a lot. And I think he's given me a lot of insights into what crypto is and how it's being used in the world today. And so I'm really, really pleased to have Jad with us to shed a bit of light more on crypto and crypto adoption in Lebanon. So thank you so much. Oh, and I forgot to mention, Jad is, of course, the founder of AETHER, which is a blockchain solutions company. They help develop blockchain-based products, and he's done a number of different things. So I'm going to just hand it over to Jad, and maybe you want to just tell us a little bit about yourself, your company, your background, something about you that most people don't know.
Right. Thank you very much for the introduction. Thank you, Murad. Thank you, Shannon. So it's great hearing about many different stories on this podcast about many people from different countries who all speak the same language about how much we need decentralization of this technology in our lives. My name is Jad. I have a blockchain development company, and to put it simply, we solve problems with blockchain technology. My background is I was a high school student. I wanted to be I wanted to go into the military as a young kid, and a certain NGO that teaches entrepreneurship came to the school, and they told us, who's someone who you think, they told the principal, who's someone that you think is a good entrepreneur or someone who's a little bit too hyper. And the principal, me being like a black sheep in the school, just pointed the finger at me. And then
I can see that, actually. I can see that.
Yeah. Yeah. And so what happened is they came and they were like, we're going to teach you how to solve problems and entrepreneurship. And I thought business was like numbers. I didn't think of it as, something that you can create stuff. I was like, business is just numbers looking at screens. I was just too young to understand. And the person who was teaching us back then, he told us the most important thing in entrepreneurship is the problem. And that flipped a switch in my mind because there are many places in my life where I saw problems and I wanted to solve them and make something. So during this shift in perspective, I went into teaching myself programming. I'm a self-taught programmer. Made my first like quick web app at like 16 years old, and then due to interest and due to passion and seeing a digital coin in a game when I was like 15, and then seeing something called Bitcoin on some forum, I somehow had so much interest in it, and then I dug deeper and deeper to go from a shallow interest to a deep interest on the paradigm shift this cryptocurrency can hold after reading the white paper online, going through some darknet forums, then Google searches, and I really wanted to understand what's the value behind it. And so I realized the value isn't just financial; it's addressing a bigger societal problem. And the big social problem, social or economical problem, is inflation, is a economy of unhinged debt, people profiting out of debts they give to other people and creating robots instead of human beings. I realized that there's so much this currency can solve. So I taught myself blockchain, and then after that, I just did a few, I taught myself Solidity, but I never did want to be just a programmer, although it's really hard to be a programmer. I wanted to see things from macro perspective and see how to connect the practical solution with what technology I'm working with. And this is where and being in a country and where there's no guarantees about anything. I mean, even your bank account isn't guaranteed. Coming from a country with lots of opportunities, which are problems are opportunities, and lots of, I saw firsthand the failure of central planning and the failure of centralized entities dictating what we should do with the economy. And I saw and how a debt economy, like in my country, I saw absolute nonsense relating to debt, like people taking debt to do plastic surgery. But if you wanted the debt to create a business, you had to go through 6 million requests for the bank and everything else. So I witnessed instead of studied the effect of money on social people. People in Lebanon, and I saw this firsthand, when they started to profit out of interest they put into banks, they became sloth-like. They didn't create a business and employed people. Instead, they just sat on the couch and profited out of the interest from a bank. And I saw that firsthand, that it was actually ironic how it was a coincidence where I was introduced to cryptocurrencies and the problem it holds. And then I saw firsthand how important the solution was for it when I saw what happened to my country. So coming from this background, it caused me to adapt and create my own thing. And that's how I started my company. I started going into the Middle East, between different countries, understanding how much opportunity there is, especially in the current world climate, which is basically extremely unbalanced. So this is why, and it was great to meet many, many people who think alike along the way, like you. And this is why I'm really excited to go through this podcast and talk about these essential points.
Thank you so much for that introduction. So I guess let's backtrack a little bit and let me ask you, do you remember a time when inflation wasn't a reality in Lebanon? And what was that like?
It was actually surreal. In Lebanon, the the dollar to LBP rate, which is Lebanon's native currency, was fixed by a central bank. So it was not supply and demand. It was like, you know what, $1 is 1,515. And what happened is the country kept printing more money. The banks started giving extra interest on bank deposits, and it was almost like you felt it was not logical. You felt that there was something wrong. You were living in a bubble because it's impossible. Like you see the country having some deep-rooted problems, having severe corruption. If we get, let's say, help or money from Middle Eastern countries like Saudi Arabia or UAE, or from European countries, you find this help evaporating through corruption. If we get money, you find that most of the money in Lebanon, there's a big gap between how much we get, how much we import, and how we export. And you find that the dollar to LBP rate is still fixed somehow. So inflation wasn't a reality in Lebanon for quite some time due to the economy being centrally, planned. There was many problems along with it, like they used to employ public employees that didn't do anything really. There's a really nice joke here in Lebanon where there are publicly employed railway workers, but there's no train in Lebanon, not one train. But there are publicly employed, train maintenance. And why is that? Because they printed money, they printed LBP and fixed a dollar rate, which was basic economics, extremely bad thing to do. But it somehow continued. And what happened is absolute descendance into chaos after the dominoes started falling apart, which was the banking system needing money from the central bank, but the central bank couldn't give it. So lots of people in Lebanon blame it on private banks, although private banks have a big hand in the issue. The big issue is with the central bank, which centrally planned certain value. And then what happened is that we saw that the central bank was unable to give money to the banks, the private banks, and the depositors have had their money vanished. And it's not just depositors who are profiting out of interest. There were some people who are, real depositors who, were doing savings. It was actual people's livelihood being affected. So I saw the collapse of the banking system right in front of my eyes, and you hear it every day. This was the worst thing anyone could experience. I was lucky enough to be a crypto maximalist who didn't believe in banks. There were some religious people who were also lucky enough to not want interest on their deposits, and they kept their money in cash, and they they did actually avert themselves. But some people, they put their money in banks and they got absolutely destroyed by $1 million, 2 million. It doesn't matter. The problem, what I saw in front of my eyes, is that business people who had like millions of dollars or even billions in the banks, who were maybe honest people, they didn't have anything. They're just business entrepreneurs. They're just really big corporations who had their money in the bank, and they couldn't have their money except in the bank because the state doesn't permit them, to have their money off record. Their deposits just vanished, and this destroyed, their business, which destroyed the employees of the business, and it just trickled down into chaos. And the depositor of under 20,000, whom all the money they have is little, and they also got evaporated as well. And the thing is, we saw that the collapse of the banks as a deep-rooted issue, in which case they just collapsed, and they really couldn't give the money back for the people. And the people had so much trust in the banks. It was more than any trust they have in anything. It was crazy. They said, "Oh, it's a bank. It would never fail. It's too big to fail." The banking system. And it just collapsed almost over the course of 4 months on a currency devaluation, which was crazy. Like right now, 100,000 Lebanese LBP is almost $1. 1,500 LBP was the dollar. So it's a crazy degeneration of currency and value.
Wow.
Jad, question: what was the magnitude of the amount being lost by people, if you have any numbers in your mind? Second, usually the 1% wealth of the nations, they always kind of avoid losing their money somehow. So in that case, it seems that you're saying that the loss of wealth was really undiscriminated, basically was touching rich and poor at the same time. So that's
Actually,
two questions.
yeah. There's two types of rich in Lebanon. There are rich people who are honest, who have businesses, who are not into corruption that much. Sometimes they might need to do some favors, to keep their business running locally, because it's, this is the problem with any centralized economies. The rich here, some of them are actually rich due to businesses they have abroad. Maybe they went and created businesses in Saudi Arabia, Venezuela, Europe, and they went to Lebanon to put their money in the bank. So some people are politically non-affiliated, or they might not even care about politics. They just made a lot of money and wanted to invest them in the bank in Lebanon, either to gain interest or to just store them to live with their families in Lebanon. And people who are not that connected couldn't pull some strings to get their money out. The people who were able to get their money out are politically connected people, whom usually, they have ties to corruption, and they could get their money out of the bank. It was quite unfortunate to see this. The other types of people who could get their money from the banks were they had to, and this is something that's really funny, they had to rob their money out of the banks. So they went into the bank armed, and they didn't rob the whole bank. They just said, "أنا بدي حقي. I want the 20K I deposited." They take the 20K, they go
Yes,
to prison for
Pamela.
about.
I read about it actually.
Yeah.
But go ahead, yeah.
Yeah. So they went and I want only my 20K. I don't want other than that. They take their 20K and then they sit in prison with their 20K intact, and they see what they can do. So this is the people who want to do it. But if we think about it correctly, the money in the bank did evaporate. But the problem is the Lebanon is a democracy. So the people elected representatives that elected a central governor that artificially manipulated the LBP USD. So it's, to me, there's also a feedback loop. So this central governor manipulated artificially the LBP to USD to not supply and demand to an arbitrary number they created. And so what happened to the dollars is that it's LBP backing. It's really similar to what happened with FTX, where he backed his crypto with his own token. It's the same in Lebanon. They backed the USDT with LBP, and they just turned on the printer. And the problem is right now, if we look at Lebanon's private sector, where people were voluntarily doing business and everything else, the private sector recovered somehow, in a way, because they didn't need the government, they didn't need some crony banks who profit out of interest to do their business. They're giving value to people, so they just continued. Unfortunately, what happened to the banks was a really big hit to the private sector. It recovered because it was giving actual value. On a parallel perspective, some businesses did profit out of this chaos, not in a bad way or with bad intentions. Simply, they had debts to, they take, the payment happens not instantaneously. Maybe they took, consignment in like millions of dollars to sell and then give back. And once the currency devalued, they paid the debt on the old rate. So it's like if they have $1 million debt, they paid it in $10,000 because of the currency devaluation. And according to the law, you're still paying at 1,500. So some businesses did actually, profit out of it. Not in a bad intentional way, just happened the way it did. On the other side as well, this bubble bursting pushed many people to create their own business, to go abroad, either physically or virtually, to actually work for what value they want to give. Because as I said before, it's quite unfortunate what happened, but as well, we were living in a bubble. I told you, like, there was literal lots of, if you wanted to go to the bank and tell them I'm opening a business, you'd go through millions of paperwork to maybe be accepted. But if you're like, I want to do plastic surgery, I want to buy this luxury car, whatever, they'd say, yeah, sure, just come next week and we give you a loan for this. So there were indications of a bubble. Another indication was when I know a millionaire who went to the bank, he had $1 million, and he told them, I want to deposit 10 million more, give me a 18% interest rate, which was crazy. And I will say, yes, I will deposit. They told them, no, and how could you say that? Next day, they called them and they told them, you know what, we accept your 18% interest rate, come deposit your money. That is when this guy knew that the financial system is collapsing. He withdrew the money he had already in the bank and went abroad, and he averted the crisis. So he saw that there was an extreme an extreme need for whatever it is they were giving the money for, and they were giving interest rates where, like, the biggest banker in the world, JP Morgan, maybe gives you 10% per year. Lebanese bank is giving you 18 to 20%. It's out of this world. So he saw the bubble. And the thing is,
I have
yes,
I have a question on this actually.
yeah,
You touched on it a little bit. You said, and I think you're right. People actually saw this.
yeah,
You know, the layman saw and understood that something was wrong, but there was this blind trust in the banking system. And you compare that to today, where people look at crypto and they're like, "Oh, we cannot trust crypto."
yeah.
And what do you have to say about this contradiction, where the very thing that you cannot trust, people trust in, and the very thing that, you know, is built for trust, people distrust?
Yeah, it's basically a human nature to be fooled by shiny objects. And basically, what happens is that there is lots of shiny objects in the banking system where, like, you can get stability, you can get a loan, you can do whatever you want, and a group of people in a room get to decide how the economy will be. And that's a big fallacy to me, because the economy is based on supply and demand. You give value, you get value in return. And the problem is, once people sell stability, between brackets, they sell, the bankers or the centralized entities, they sell something called stability, or something called, safety, under the guise of mass controlling of people. And in a way that's quite, insidious, because as we can see, the banks have failed time and again to create an actual value-based economy, which is peer-to-peer. The way we see it, the way that what happens is people turn a blind eye, because they believe that something is going to save them, someone, will take care of them. And it's really quite interesting to see this in many types of countries, east to west. Like, this is a global phenomenon. We see this happening everywhere in the world, where there are governments always, or, big, like, it's even funny finding big ventures or big hedge funds trying to impose control. And the reason these, hedge funds were successful is because of a, free market exchange, which is supply and demand. And that's why people wanted to go for, the gold standard has been fought over many years, because not because gold is a shiny object. The reason the gold standard, was fought is because gold takes effort to mine and get out of the land, and then, so it's similar to how Bitcoin takes effort to mine through processing power. So now we see that essentially giving value and taking value is something that should be, voluntary. Real value should be, shouldn't be inflated value, shouldn't be fake value. But people still believe, like, it's a fallacy. It's almost like the way people told Thomas Edison that the light bulb is useless, and we would take wires, and the AC electricity is dangerous. We could just light up a candle with some oil. Why would we use the light bulb? This is something that happened a lot, and quite frankly, the way I see it, people will slowly get into something that's more efficient. And crypto is definitely more efficient than any crypto or the blockchain tech.
As a Lebanese, what do? I see my money melting like the snow under the sun. How do I react? Give me some of the
Yeah.
feeling on the ground, because you were there when those things happen. Please tell me story, good, bad,
Yeah.
ugly. I'm sure you
Yeah.
have so many of them to share.
So many. Yeah, I shared the story out of the people who violently went into the banks. There was lots of reactions. Some people were just passive, because they were like, okay, fine, this happened, and eventually I'll get my money back. I hope so for them, but I don't think so. Some people were active, and, like, they lost a lot of money in the bank, and they were getting interest all their life, and they thought they're going to be stable. Now it's time to wake up. And what happened is, and I loved this. I hated the fact that they lost their, if hard-earned money. But I loved the fact that it forced them to go on the attack, and they were like, we need to start doing business. Agriculture in Lebanon just skyrocketed, because people were like, okay, we lost some money, we can invest it and do some, agricultural farms. There might be a food problem. People went into, not only the classical agriculture, but hydroponic system. We have a really good community of agri-tech, which is, funded by Veritech, where we do agricultural technology innovation in Lebanon. It's been going really good because we have really good water supply. We found as well people just started buying and producing in Lebanon. And there's a really weird, but it shows you a lot, where the private sector in Lebanon gave a 10-year all-time high last month, June, in a destabilized economy because people were forced to get there. There's a big slap on the face. Look what happened, and people were forced to go attack, go start growing. And it was really interesting how crypto usage skyrocketed after this, both for getting paid and paying, because the banking system just collapsed, and at the same time using it as a form of investment, staking. People started, investing in many cryptocurrencies. I'm not going to lie, due to the low education that we had in crypto, some people were scammed. In fact, a lot. But from another perspective, some people, got invested in Bitcoin, made a few profits, or, understood what blockchain is because they had an alternative before, which was the banking system. Now they have something that's irrespective of the banking system.
So if I understand here, what is the real economy start to function much better, and people were able to invest in real stuff, buying whatever they wanted, and that's what made a little bit the crisis actually shift and were less felt among the people. So I would say that people were not starving on the street. They were very resilient, as Lebanese entrepreneurship mindset is, and they start to be. And by the way, they are very very traditional in terms of the Lebanese population all over the world. When you see, they are really traditional businesses, real estate, agriculture, as you mentioned, all over the world, car making business and stuff like that in America and stuff. So they rebound quickly. They find an alternative through real economy and also the opportunity in crypto. Is that correct?
Yeah. Yes.
And that's how crypto started to take up in Lebanon. Is that correct?
Yeah, but there's always this discussion about how you need to be well educated and you need to understand the technology in order to adopt crypto. But do you think this is the case for Lebanon, or did it buck the trend?
Actually, in Lebanon, we saw people that don't even use e-banking, that they're really traditional, get into crypto and use Binance and set up a Binance account. We found that people are, due to the good user experience of Binance or other, exchanges, it was easier for them to just sign in with Google Creative or sign in with the phone. So we saw people going into crypto in a crazy way. 80% was fear of missing out, the hype. So this is totally natural. But we saw also lots of education coming out of it. First, there was the hype. People, some people lost, some people won lots of money. Then people started to understood the value of it as a commodity, as using it to get payments. And as well, we saw a really good thing where certain illegal things happened in the crypto space in Lebanon. I'm not talking about, money washing, because the regulations are still, a little bit, it's not illegal, it's not legal either. So you can't call taking a crypto from abroad money washing, because it's not, we're just getting paid. We saw some illegal transactions being due to the decentralized nature of crypto and the ability to track the transactions on a decentralized ledger. It was, but some the security apparatus was able to track these transactions and arrest these criminals because the transactions were immutable and on the blockchain. So we saw also the good side of it, that it has a really bad reputation of being used for terrorism and used for money washing. While I said this before, illegal acts are seldom appreciated to be used on the blockchain because it's immutable and it's transparent. So you wouldn't do anything illegal on it. You would rather actually use just cash. Or there are certain things in the banking system where illegal money is done. So this is something in Lebanon that happened as well.
Yeah.
Quickly, so the timeline here. When was the adoption of I would say the alternative way of using crypto started?
Yeah.
Okay, if you can tell me that, and also what was some of the use case? So let's say I buy crypto, I'm a certain age, but I adapt because my friend invite me to do. And by the way, when you say losing, they were losing because they were like betting, hedging against the Bitcoin when it was at 65 at the time, or they were like, because if you, let's say, bought Bitcoin at a certain time when it was during the high time and you really own it and you didn't borrow for it, you will still have your coin. And if you can wait a little bit longer, the Bitcoin is recovering. So what was some of the use case there? And how was the peer-to-peer involvement going on, like in Lebanon? I was going and giving cash to the guy, buying crypto. Give me some story on how those things were working there. And what was the timeline, like, to give our listener timeline?
Things skyrocketed into crypto adoption on the 2018, 2019. After 2019, the demand skyrocketed because first there was the hype of Bitcoin going up, there was the bank collapse, and there was the distrust in government and anything to solve any of our problems. And there was, of course, the absolute marketing of Web3 and NFTs as a whole, which created a full surge in people in Lebanon wanting to get into it because honestly they had nothing better to do in terms of financial literacy, let's say, or financial inclusion or being included in the global economy. The banks would just collapse, everything was getting hammered. And first, people not only went into Binance, they started into DeFi. Lots of people went into DeFi. That some people who are traditional, who are modern, who are tech savvy, who are not, went into staking and DeFi and all this stuff. But they saw a good way of making money. Another way is into NFTs. NFTs gained lots of traction. Lots of Lebanese artists went into the NFT space. And it was quite cool seeing the NFT space being filled. Some Lebanese artists got into NFT NYC. They got their works featured there. It was really cool. So, and on the third way, mining. So before, when Ethereum was not proof of stake, it was proof of work. Lebanon has a really good, there was this gaming center. So we didn't have the home network that was really advanced. There needs to be like a gaming center in an area where gamers can enjoy the internet connection they need to game online. And so what happened is COVID happened, and the gaming centers had to close. And what we did, we told them, they literally told us we needed, we were broke, how could we make money? And we got the gaming centers to start mining Ethereum. And they were getting, dollars, fresh dollars out of it. It was not LPP. So even after COVID restrictions went down, they didn't open the gaming center for people who paid in LPP. They just kept mining. So in Lebanon, we saw a surge in mining. Everyone mined everything: Helium, Ethereum, Bitcoin, Litecoin, because the electrical grid was still on 1,500 LPP. So the people took this as a way to get lower electricity costs, and everyone mined crypto. The thing is, everyone mined crypto. Some people didn't know what was happening. They just saw the balance going up, and they went to someone, to cash it out. But it created an economy where people were mining, were understanding crypto, were understanding everything. It was really beautiful seeing this, and this would not have happened if it weren't for this big crisis happening.
Can I ask you then, what is it like to live in Lebanon today? Can you do you just live with I don't know, Binance account, or do people still use US dollar? Do they have gold?
Yeah. So the thing is, the banks still have something called fresh account, where we receive our money in fresh, but we withdraw it as cash instantly, so that we don't hold the risk. So the fresh, the thing is, you can open something called fresh dollars, which is now different from dollars. Dollars is a term used by economists in Lebanon because the dollars they put in the bank were gone, so they called them LOL dollars, and it's actually a true. It's literally all over the news in Lebanon. It's officially called that the dollars you had before the bank collapse are called dollars, and the fresh dollars you make after it is dollars. This is how insane is the financial system is. So right now we use, crypto. We use sometimes fresh dollars. Mostly we're into crypto because we can cash it out instantly. We have the freedom to do this, and as well, gold, real estate. There's always these modes of doing some investments and selling, buying, exporting. What's like to live in Lebanon today? It's not bad at all because, from my perspective, I'm able to be self-sustaining. I'm able to thrive serving the Middle East, serving Europe in blockchain development, while sitting in a country, even though the financial system is collapsed, I don't pay that much of high taxes. I have a freedom. I still have the freedom intact, because you feel that you can travel anywhere, but you can still create here. We teach, people blockchain development in order for them to be self-sustainable, or web development or anything else. And the thing is, like I told you before, I was taught that every problem is an opportunity. And the problems here in Lebanon are an opportunity for me to solve them through blockchain technology, not only financial. Like there is a college that there was a problem where people pretended to be, that they graduated out of it, and we solved it through blockchain certifications. So we did something where there's no state involved, and we need to create, a solution for it. And this is the most important thing. And what we saw also in Lebanon, that everyone needed crypto, and everyone, regardless of their background, wanted this technology. And it brought people together.
How did the government react to this? Because obviously having crypto as an alternative is a problem for the Lebanese pound. And so that's question number one. Question number two is there's a lot of talk about de-dollarization. And I think people still use stable coins a lot, which are pegged to the US dollar. How does that affect you guys if there was a de-dollarization?
It would be funny to know that people traded LBP for dollars to get the dollar value go down, and then get
not funny.
Yeah,
Very tragic.
Very tragically funny. Yeah, it would be like, actually Lebanon is a dollarized country. The LBP was just, a inflated sham, to be honest. Lebanon uses everything we do here in Lebanon uses dollars. Even if we get Bitcoin, we transfer them to dollars in order to buy and do the certain transaction. The thing is, there is no reserve currency in the world for me from any country except maybe Bitcoin, gold, or skills and value. This is to me because uh, even if let's say if the de-dollarization happens, or even if it happens from another place, like if anything collapses, the skills, the resources, the business infrastructure is the most important currency we have. So that's why I think the effect would be tragic, but there's always a rebound out of it, because I don't think it will happen suddenly, if it happens at all. I think that I believe that the future of finance should be a decentralized currency that is irrespective to government printing it, any government in the world. And the thing is, as we can see, the collapse of not the collapse of banks, but the collapse of central planning, maybe. Banks were just an apparatus. It just shows us how ineffective it is to trust, certain parties with our lives and finance, and how value is real value, peer to peer. Like what I can give, what I can get, what we can negotiate. This is the only thing that has value in the world. So yes, people in Lebanon relied on reserve currency back to the dollar. Uh, Gold, physical gold, they don't even believe in the ETF gold, buying it. The as is a big phenomenon here. I don't see it as a big effect. I see the reason the country uses any type of stable coin is because of its usability abroad, and the ability for it to be bought abroad.
So if I may ask, so right now, what are in many countries we're talking about sandboxes in Dubai, in Saudi Arabia, and of course, so I wonder, first of all, I think since the government has raised their hand, like with the bank failing, so you like sandbox in itself, the whole country is a sandbox. Can you tell me a little bit? What are the projects going on? What's working? Is it the good time for all the crypto Web3 space to actually move to Lebanon and start doing things there? Because it seems that is a level ground for us to. So tell me, please, a little bit on that, and how the government react if they let the free market going in that space, I would say. Please.
I wouldn't say that they would. Like, there is a free market in this space. The government is not experienced enough to handle crypto, because they don't know. Like, there's a big gap in experience with it, and they already have problems. It's a perfect place to explore, blockchains and payment solutions. However, the problem in Lebanon is a severe political corruption, where you don't know what might happen in the future. Even though the government is like this now, it might try to impose certain regulations. But the funny thing about it, which is the truth, is that if crypto benefits certain politicians, they just let it go. And this is the way to get regulated in Lebanon. You have to ensure that it will benefit politicians, and if it does, which it will, it'll be regulated in a way. The really cool thing about Lebanon is that it's extremely diverse in ethnicity, religion. Even inside the religion, there are sectarian divisions, and even inside the sectarian divisions, there are political divisions inside the sectarian divisions, and you go all the way to find family divisions. So it's a really cool funnel of divisions here in Lebanon. But people come together with crypto, with the private business interactions, with everything else, where you find the value and diversity here, which is irrespective of centrally planned, economy. And you find as well that Lebanon functions, that people function better when they create decentralized private communities of help, support, not a big government giving support. Like an example in the concept that you explored pretty nice in TakaTalks is Jam'iyya. This is something that skyrocketed after the bank's collapse, where families, villages, people from different places created a way to organize their finances, help those in need, profit out of and create this thing. And it was quite beautiful, honestly. It just screamed the need for crypto, where people created a decentralized way of helping others. I mean, donations, where we saw the government's role becoming peanuts, and we saw the role of people between themselves, their families, their villages, their brothers, sisters coming together and creating this help for those in need. And we saw crypto being used as a big donation factor for it, because you can verify that the donation went through and you didn't donate to someone maybe you're in Europe, you donated to another Lebanese claiming he's going to Lebanon with his donations, he might steal that. Crypto was verifiable that the donation happened. So it was, we saw, I witnessed personally the absolute dominance of people coming together and creating this environment of help and support instead of the government being, corrupted and,
involved.
Yeah.
So the remittance business, I assume, since you have maybe more Lebanese
Yeah.
living outside of the country that inside, I'm sure the remittance being done in crypto was happening and being massive.
Yeah.
So so basically, even if someone was not into crypto, the outsiders or expat population, I mean the diaspora was supporting with that. How is it? Do you have any numbers in your mind that how many people in terms of percentage in your country was benefiting from remittance being done in crypto, and if it's happening, or if they would say, pay me that way, I don't want the money to go to the bank? How was
Yeah, there are millions of dollars being dealt in remittance and cryptos. I don't have an exact number. Binance has these numbers, and they were pretty high in the MENA region. We're a small country that shone a lot in the crypto region in Lebanon. So there are a big number of people who benefited from crypto being in Lebanon, getting help in crypto and donations. At the same time, the benefit was not only in the financial benefit, but it got people onboarded into the new technology.
great? Yeah, thank you so much for that. Just a quick one on
Yeah.
when we compare FTX meltdown
Yeah.
and the amount of money being lost. If you compare that with the meltdown of the banking system in
Yeah.
Lebanon, you think they equal each other, or is like 10% of what happened in Lebanon in terms of lost wealth? How is
Yeah.
it? Because
And
the
the-
news
and-
like to take a small
Yeah.
thing about crypto and make it a big deal. With a centralized exchange, by the way, which
Yeah.
is not a decentralized exchange,
It's not
where we
blockchain.
don't. Yeah, it's not a
SPF,
blockchain.
FTX is as far from blockchain technology as claiming a plane is a boat. It's completely. It's just centralized finance on steroids. The loss in Lebanon was much more substantial to me than FTX. It's a loss of family owned. Your legacy and your your money in the bank were lost. Certain companies just went out of it. So not only the company's money, but the company's net value, its employees, its vision just wiped out overnight. And not to mention the domino effect that caused the Beirut port blast eventually due to absolute chaos in the system after the bank collapsed. So when the bank collapsed, the chaos happened as well inside the system because some public employees weren't paid. So I would say the loss was so substantial. It's like a nuclear bomb hit the financial system and wiped out everyone. If we want to compare it in numbers, I'd say it's like I would, I'm not a financial expert. SBX, FTX is like 20% of what happened in Lebanon.
I would
Yeah.
compare it to like a bullet to
Yeah.
Hiroshima.
Yeah, exactly.
It's,
Yeah.
if you but yeah, I mean the problem is that we don't get the coverage. The mass media wants to really go when they go after something. It's like
Yeah.
a dog with a bones in the hand, and they don't want to
Yeah.
let go, and they want to blame everything. But yeah,
Exactly.
I mean this was and last thing I wanted to know about. I know, mashallah, that you guys in Lebanon are kind of welcoming and supporting one of the largest refugee community in the world.
Yeah.
Without much help, and nobody talks about these great
Yeah.
things because, when you live as an immigrant in Western Europe,
Yeah.
you like, they put them, in a camp, they don't give them proper things. So they always try to claim that they are the best nation in the world. But when we look at actually some country like Lebanon, who has like maybe half of the population, I would say refugee, and they don't complain. And the Lebanese are kind of have compassion and kindness. How was this community, I mean the refugee community, impacted also by the crisis, and how was the Lebanese support to help them and stuff like that in that very difficult time?
It was very negatively impacted because there is this saying that if someone comes as a visitor for 30, this is an extremely old tradition. For 30 days, I think you're not allowed to ask where they're from. You welcome them after. It's extremely old, I think, Arab tradition. And we're very welcoming in Lebanon to any type of refugee. We're actually, there is a big cultural, flora in Lebanon. I believe, more than any place in the world. There's lots of different people of ethnicities. The unfortunate thing that happened is when the crisis happened, there is a shift in the balance of how much a refugee made versus a Lebanese. So refugees that were receiving some type of support from the UN, and because you can't pay them in LPP because in their home country they need to use dollars, they can't go to let's say Syria or let's say Bangladesh or anywhere place else that give LPP to get money to maybe support their families. So what happened is there was something unfortunate where refugees were being paid more than native Lebanese, and this is not because the currency devalued and the salary of the native Lebanese became skewed. There's nothing I could say than it was just absolute blah blah blah. There's nothing I could express in words to what happened, and this caused hate between the refugees and the people. Because the refugees were using the infrastructure of the country, and they were using UN help to buy certain things, and the native Lebanese couldn't do this. It was a place where it stirred up lots of types of xenophobia, because you didn't want that much refugees on the land. And the thing is, refugees are an essential component in Lebanon's economy because being people went into creation of factories and to actually produce. So another good thing is that the refugees had lots of work opportunities themselves, because before it wasn't that much of a production economy. Now it would require more Lebanese and refugee hand strength to put this forward. And the thing is about the refugee crisis is that we found that the refugees running from dictatorships and centralized dictatorships where we were actually relating to them more because it happened to our country pretty bad, and we understood then what was their suffering. And but also we don't like, the thing is that it became more political instead, and when politics get involved, the media just goes either extreme hatred or extreme like, okay, you should let in the refugees. And there was no base of reality where it was more, organized. So the country, quite unfortunately, due to, lots of wars happening, useless wars, in my opinion, all around the Middle East that were happening, were based on, if, in my opinion, if you trace war, you could trace it back to inflation. You could see that war is based on inflation. It's simple as this. The more inflation happens, the wars happen. So we saw this as well.
Yeah, and they print money to continue the war too.
Yeah, exactly. They sell the band-aids and the bullets, and unfortunately, people, like I said, look for big countries to save them, regardless of what the countries are. And then what happens is absolute chaos. And right now, I believe cryptocurrency and blockchain technology could be a aspect to free all the nations around the world. I mean, if we focus on, let's say, in Lebanon, you just create a MetaMask wallet or a Binance account, you have a banking system ready. This was not possible even all around the world, even with the greatest banking system. It's hard to set up a working banking system just like this with security and everything else. This is now possible even in Africa. In Africa, there's no banking infrastructure because you couldn't create it. And right now, a phone and 12 words could be your banking infrastructure to connect with the whole world. Imagine how amazing is that. And this is why building the future is important.
I see a bright future actually for this technology, especially when I see that maybe Jad was 13 years old when Bitcoin was created.
Yeah.
So I see a believer that believe in something that he didn't see happen. I was maybe 40 years old when this happened, and I missed out on the opportunity back then. But I'm so happy to see that the community is growing in that space and people are building amazing products. Inshallah. Thank you so much for having share your story. It's really grateful to hear that.
So honestly, this has been an incredibly, it is not really a question, it's more of a comment. This has been a very inspiring story. So on the one hand, it's very sad because you had political refugees, they were fleeing war at some point. And then now you have financial refugees and they're fleeing this crisis of instability in your finances, which is, I think, a lot scarier, it's a lot harder of a problem to fix than, stop fighting. Of course, I'm not saying war is fun, but it's very tragic. And obviously lots of people lost a lot of money and that changes everything in your life with the financial crisis, with the banks melting down. But on the other hand, you, Jad, you are full of energy and excitement for the future, which is amazing. And you've told us about the rebound in the private sector and really going back to what brings value instead of just, rubbish, putting money, investing in nonsense. Now the truth comes out, the truth comes out, what actually brings value, what actually you should put your money in. That is amazing. And then the story of now how crypto brings people together. Like you said, division within division within division, and yet somehow they managed to all come together to agree on one thing. And then creating these community-owned financial services, which, as you said, this is what we try to do at TakaTalks, right? We try to bring back these services back to the control of the community. So it's thank you so much for sharing. This is an incredibly inspiring story. And I am hopeful for the future because there are so many stories of these things and people don't know what to do, but now there's a solution. And this, for me, it's an amazing thing.
Yeah, it's building the new renaissance. And it is said, لا تكره شيئا لعله خير. Whatever bad things happen, there are opportunities for going forward, for moving forward, for all the people around the world. And I see it as the crypto has brought all the people around the world, not only in my country, together because it's a permissionless system. It is truly one of the best use cases of the global renaissance moving forward. And I'm just really glad to be also with you, everyone I met building this, because I believe the future is in this, and I believe the people need an alternative. And if not us, maybe our children, maybe the world as itself needs this financial system. And it's just moving forward from there. I see lots of similar cases. A lot of people speak the same language. Even people coming from countries with good financial systems speak the same language. And we saw the collapse of banks in many, advanced countries from east to west. It's not like we saw east to west complete collapse of certain, from Evergreen to Deutsche Bank and then to Silicon Valley. It's just a crazy feedback loop that's screaming, it's time for a change, and it is time for a change.
Yeah.
That is an
Thank you so
amazing
much.
way to end.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Thank you very much. It's been amazing talking about it, and I look forward to see what the future will look like.
Thanks, Jad.